September 3rd, 2025, 11:42 p.m. local time. The South China Sea, 14 nautical miles north of Mischief Reef in the Spratly Islands. The USS Zumwalt, the United States Navy's $7.5 billion testbed for next-generation naval warfare, maintains course at 18 knots through contested waters. At 610 feet in length and displacing 15,995 tons at full load, the Zumwalt represents the most expensive destroyer ever constructed. Its twin advanced gun systems, each designed to fire precision-guided projectiles to ranges exceeding 63 nautical miles, remain trained forward. The integrated power system generates 78 megawatts of electrical power, distributed between propulsion and the ship's spy, 3 multifunction radar. 1,400 meters to starboard, the planned destroyer Nanchang, hull number 101 of the Type 055 class, shadows the American warship. At 590 feet and 13,000 tons displacement, the Nanchang carries 112 vertical launch cells loaded with a mixture of HHQ, 9B surface-to-air missiles valued at $3 million each, and YJ-18 anti-ship cruise missiles estimated at $2.5 million per round. Total weapons payload, approximately $350 million. 3,000 meters beyond the Nanchang, a Type 052D destroyer maintains formation. Its 64 vertical launch cells loaded with an estimated $180 million of munitions. What begins as a routine freedom of navigation operation will escalate into the first direct naval engagement between American and Chinese warships in the modern era. The exchange will last 11 minutes. When it concludes, 52 lives will be lost, 2 destroyers will carry battle damage, and naval warfare doctrine will require fundamental reassessment. This is not a story of mistakes. This is a study in how proximity, capability, and miscalculation convert peacetime operations into armed conflict when the margin for error collapses to seconds. 11:42 p.m. The Zumwalt's Combat Information Center tracks 11 surface contacts within a 50 nautical mile radius. Sea state, moderate, with swells averaging 1.2 meters. Visibility, 8 nautical miles under quarter-moon conditions. The destroyer's mission profile is standard for FONIP. Transit through waters claimed by China but recognized as international by the United States and 27 other nations. The route passes within 12 nautical miles of features China has fortified since 2014. The Zumwalt's automated systems monitor the electromagnetic spectrum. Chinese early warning radars on Fiery Cross Reef and Subi Reef maintain continuous track. The planned vessels have maintained visual contact for 6 hours. The USS Zumwalt entered service in 2016 after a development program that consumed $22.5 billion across 3 hulls. The advanced gun system, designed to provide naval surface fire support at unprecedented ranges, fires long-range land attack projectiles originally estimated at $35,000 per round. Actual procurement cost, $800,000 to $1 million per projectile. The Navy canceled ammunition production in 2016. The guns have never fired in combat. The ship's primary offensive capability resides in 2 21-cell Mk-57 vertical launch systems positioned along the hull's periphery, designed to reduce radar cross-section. Standard load, 80 missiles, including RIM, 162 Evolved Sea Sparrow missiles for point defense at $1.4 million each, RIM, 174 standard extended range active missiles for area defense at $4.3 million each, and Tomahawk cruise missiles at $1.87 million each. The Zumwalt carries no dedicated anti-ship missiles. This omission will matter. 11:58 p.m. The Nanchang alters course 15 degrees to port, closing a lateral separation to 1,100 meters. The Type 052D adjusts position to maintain formation geometry. Radio traffic on bridge-to-bridge VHF Channel 16 consists of standardized warnings. The planned vessels declare the water's Chinese territorial seas and request the American warship depart immediately. The Zumwalt's bridge responds with equally standardized language, affirming the right of innocent passage through international waters. Neither side expects compliance. Both sides understand the script. What changes is geometry. At 1,100 meter separation, and closure rates that could reach 40 knots in emergency maneuvers. Reaction time for collision avoidance drops below 90 seconds. The margin compresses. The planned Nanchang represents China's most capable surface combatant. Commissioned in 2020, the Type 055 class displaces more than any destroyer in the U.S. inventory and matches the capabilities of American Ticonderoga-class cruisers. The Type 346B S-band ASA radar system provides target tracking to ranges exceeding 500 kilometers. The 112-cell vertical launch system employs a universal design accepting surface-to-air, anti-ship, anti-submarine, and land attack missiles without modification. Construction cost per hull, estimated $900 million to $1.1 billion. China has commissioned 8 Type 055 destroyers since 2020, with additional hulls under construction. Production rate, faster than the U.S. Navy's current destroyer replacement schedule. The Nanchang carries a crew of 310. Average age, 28 years. Training emphasis, confrontation with U.S. Navy forces in contested waters. 12:04 a.m., September 4th. The Nanchang's fire control radar shifts from search mode to tracking mode. The SBY-3 system aboard the Zumwalt detects a change immediately. Frequency, X-band, pulse repetition rate. Consistent with terminal guidance illumination, the radar is not searching. It is locked. Bearing, constant. Range, decreasing. The Combat Information Center classifies a mission as hostile fire control. Standard response protocols specify 3 options: electronic countermeasures to break the lock, evasive maneuver to force reacquisition, or defensive systems activation to prepare for incoming fire. The Zumwalt's commanding officer selects option 3. The ship's Mk-57 VLS cells transition from standby to ready status. Estimated time, 12 seconds. The Nanchang's electronic support measures detect a power increase in the American destroyer's fire control radars. Both ships are now tracking each other with fire control quality solutions. This is the moment where peacetime rules of engagement encounter wartime geometry. Neither captain has authorization to fire first. Both captains have authorization to defend their vessels if fired upon. The definition of fired upon becomes critical. Does radar lock constitute hostile intent? International law provides no clear answer. U.S. Navy doctrine permits defensive action against imminent threat. Planned doctrine contains similar language. The interpretive gap. What constitutes imminence when missile flight times from this range measure 35 to 40 seconds? Neither side fires. Both sides prepare. The escalation ladder has 3 more rungs. 12:07 a.m. The Type 052D destroyer, positioned 3,200 meters from Zumwalt, activates its Type 366 surface search and targeting radar. The radar provides over-the-horizon targeting data for the YJ-62 anti-ship missiles in its vertical launch cells. Range, 400 kilometers. Speed, Mach 0.9. Warhead, 300 kilograms of high explosive. See skimming cruise profile. Terminal altitude 7 to 10 meters above sea surface. The Zumwalt now faces fire control locks from 2 platforms. Tactical assessment. The geometry supports a coordinated strike. The Nanchang's YJ-18 missiles can engage and flank while the Type 052D attacks from a different bearing vector, splitting defensive fire. Combined salvo capacity, 16 to 24 missiles. The Zumwalt carries 32 evolved Sea Sparrow missiles for point defense. Mathematics. In a saturation scenario, probability of leakers increases above 30% with salvos exceeding 20 missiles. The Zumwalt's commanding officer requests weapons-free authorization via satellite communication to U.S. Pacific Fleet headquarters. Transmission time, 0.8 seconds. Processing time at headquarters, unknown. Round-trip communication delay at minimum. For seconds, maximum. Indefinite if the decision requires elevation to Pentagon or White House level. The request specifies imminent threat based on multiple fire control locks and tactical geometry consistent with pre-strike positioning. While the message transmits, the Zumwalt's weapons officer designates targets in the combat system. The Type 052D receives primary priority as the more distant threat with longer missile flight time. The Nanchang receives secondary priority due to closer range, but also closer defensive engagement envelope. Engagement sequence. Ripple fire 4 Tomahawk missiles at the Type 052D to force defensive reaction, then shift anti-air defensive posture for incoming counterstrike. Estimated time to execute if authorized. 18 seconds from command to first missile away. 12:09 a.m. The authorization does not arrive. What arrives instead is an expansion of the rules of engagement transmitted 3 minutes earlier to the planned task force from Southern Theater Command headquarters in Guangzhou. The new ROE permits weapons release if American forces maintain course toward Chinese claimed features. The Zumwalt's course, 195 degrees true. Destination, transit lane passing 8 nautical miles from Mischief Reef. The plan interpretation, provocation requiring forceful response. The American interpretation, lawful exercise of navigation rights. Neither interpretation matters to physics. What matters is at 12:09 and 34 seconds a.m., the Nanchang's fire control system receives release authorization and executes a pre-programmed firing sequence. For YJ, 18 anti-ship missiles erupt from vertical launch cells in 2-second intervals. The YJ-18 follows a distinctive flight profile. Boost phase. The missile climbs to 40,000 feet altitude, extending detection range but also extending flight time. Cruise phase. Subsonic speed of Mach 0.8 conserves fuel. Terminal phase. The missile descends to 10 meters altitude and accelerates to Mach 3.0 for the final 40 kilometers. Time from launch to impact at 1,400 meters range, approximately 38 seconds. The Zumwalt Spy. 3 radar detects launch immediately. Designation. For inbound tracks, bearing 075 degrees relative. Initial altitude 300 meters and climbing. Classification, anti-ship cruise missiles. Threat assessment, extreme. Engagement authority understanding ROE. Granted automatically by hostile fire. The Combat Information Center does not wait for the delayed authorization from Pacific Fleet. Self-defense is unambiguous. 12:09 and 48 seconds a.m. 14 seconds after the Chinese launch, the Zumwalt's Mk-57 VLS cells open in sequence. 8-rim, 162 Evolved Sea Sparrow missiles launch in 4 seconds, targeting the inbound YJ-18s in pairs. 2 seconds later, 4-rim, 174 Standard missiles launch to provide backup engagement. Simultaneously, the ship's close-in weapon system activates. The 20mm phalanx CIWS tracks the inbound threats, calculating intercept solution for terminal defense if the missiles penetrate the medium-range engagement zone. Rate of fire, 1,500 rounds per minute. Effective range, 1,600 meters. The phalanx represents the final defensive layer. If missiles reach this range, impact probability increases above 60%. The Zumwalt maneuvers hard to starboard, presenting the smallest radar cross-section to the inbound threats while maintaining engagement geometry for the defensive missiles. At the same instant, the Zumwalt's weapons officer initiates offensive counterstrike. 6 Tomahawk missiles launch toward the Nanchang in 6 seconds. Flight profile. Terrain following cruise at 150 meters altitude, accelerating to Mach 0.75. Range to target, 1,400 meters. Flight time, approximately 45 seconds. Warhead, for 150 kilograms of high explosive. The Tomahawk was not designed for anti-ship missions at this range. Optimal employment. Standoff strikes against land targets from ranges exceeding 1,000 kilometers. Close-range employment against maneuvering warships. Untested in combat, the decision reflects limited options. The Zumwalt carries no dedicated anti-ship missiles. The Tomahawk inventory offers the only offensive capability available in the 18-second decision window, 12:10 and 2 seconds a.m. The first intercept occurs at 8,200 meters range. An Evolved Sea Sparrow missile detonates 12 meters from an inbound YJ-18, producing a fragmentation cloud traveling at 3,500 meters per second. The Chinese missile's airframe fractures. Fuel ignites. The explosion appears on radar as a rapidly expanding debris cloud. First kill confirmed. 3 seconds later, the second YJ-18 explodes at 6,400 meters range. Second kill confirmed. The third YJ-18 evades the assigned Sea Sparrow through a terminal jink maneuver, diving to 8 meters altitude and accelerating through Mach 2.5. The backup standard missile adjusts trajectory, but cannot compensate for the rapid altitude change and supersonic acceleration. The standard missile passes 40 meters above the target. Mississippi. The fourth YJ-18 also penetrates the medium-range engagement zone, following an identical evasive profile. Both surviving missiles enter the terminal phase at Mach 3.0, bearing directly toward the Zumwalt at 10 meters altitude. Range, 2,200 meters. Time to impact, 2.3 seconds. The phalanx CIWS engages automatically. The system fires 180 rounds in 2.4 seconds, creating a defensive barrier of tungsten penetrators between the ship and the inbound missiles. The first YJ-18 intersects the fire stream at 800 meters range. 23 penetrators strike the missile body. The warhead detonates prematurely, producing an air burst 780 meters from the Zumwalt. Overpressure wave, sufficient to shatter windows but insufficient to cause structural damage at this range. The second YJ-18 passes to the defensive fire without intercept. Impact, 12:10 and 4 seconds AM. Starboard side amidships, 2 meters above the waterline. The 300-kilogram warhead detonates on contact. Penetration, 4 meters into the hull. Casualties, immediate deaths in the impacted compartment number 6. Secondary fires ignite in adjacent spaces. The integrated power system automatically isolates damaged sections. The Zumwalt remains operational. Speed, reduced to 12 knots. Weapon systems, functional. The ship has absorbed 1 hit and remains combat capable. 12:10 and 18 seconds AM. While the Zumwalt's crew initiates damage control procedures, the Nanchang confronts the inbound Tomahawk salvo. 6 missiles, approaching at wave-top altitude, spread across a 200-meter front. The Type 055's HHQ, 10 short-range defense system engages first. 18 missiles launch in 6 seconds, targeting the Tomahawks in groups of 3. The HHQ, 10 uses infrared guidance, immune to the jamming that might defeat radar-guided interceptors. First intercept, 4,000 meters. Second intercept, 3,200 meters. Third intercept, 2,800 meters. 3 Tomahawks destroyed. 3 remain inbound. The Nanchang's Type 1130 CIWS activates. Rate of fire, 11,000 rounds per minute. The system fires 800 rounds in 4.3 seconds. 2 additional Tomahawks explode in the defensive fire at ranges of 1,200 and 900 meters. 1 Tomahawk penetrates. Impact, 12:10 and 22 seconds AM. Port side forward, 3 meters above the waterline. The Tomahawk's 450-kilogram warhead detonates inside the Nanchang's hull, forward of the bridge. Penetration, 6 meters. The explosion ruptures fuel lines and destroys the forward vertical launch system module, cooking off 3 HHQ, 9B missiles in their cells. Secondary explosions propagate through the damaged section. Casualties, 31 killed immediately, 17 wounded. The bridge remains intact, but fire spreads rapidly through ventilation systems. The Nanchang's damage control parties activate fixed firefighting systems. The destroyer maintained propulsion and weapons capability in the aft sections, but the forward VLS module is destroyed, eliminating 48 of the ship's 112 missile cells. Offensive capability, reduced by 43%. The destroyer begins turning away from the engagement, increasing range while fighting fires. 12:11 and 3 seconds AM. The Type 052D, observing the engagement between Zumwalt and Nanchang, receives firing authorization from the task force commander aboard the Nanchang. 8 YJ-62 anti-ship missiles launched in 16 seconds. Flight profile. See skimming throughout. Altitude 7 meters. Speed Mach 0.9. Range to target, 3,200 meters. Flight time, approximately 11 seconds. The Zumwalt, still conducting damage control from the previous hit, and having expended 12 defensive missiles, faces a second salvo with reduced defensive capacity. Remaining evolved Sea Sparrow missiles. 20. Remaining standard missiles. 8. The combat system designates intercept solutions. 8 Sea Sparrows launch in 8 seconds. The missiles streak toward the inbound YJ-62 salvo, crossing the range in seconds. Intercept sequence. 6 successful kills at ranges between 2,400 and 1,800 meters. 2 YJ-62 missiles penetrate, entering the phalanx engagement zone. The CIWS engages both targets simultaneously, splitting fire between the inbound threats. The system fires 340 rounds in 4.5 seconds. The first YJ-62 takes 18 hits at 600 meters range and explodes. The second YJ-62 evades a defensive fire through a program jink to starboard and maintains course toward the Zumwalt. Impact, 12:11 and 14 seconds AM, port side aft waterline. The 300-kilogram warhead detonates at the point of maximum structural stress, rupturing the hull below the waterline and flooding 2 compartments. Casualties, 8 additional killed. The Zumwalt lists 4 degrees to port as flooding spreads. Damage control teams activate pumps and seal bulkheads. Speed, reduced to 8 knots. The ship remains afloat, but combat capability degrades. The commanding officer orders withdrawal from the engagement area while continuing defensive operations. The Zumwalt does not withdraw unopposed. Before turning away, the weapons officer launches a final offensive salvo for Tomahawk missiles toward the Type 052D. Flight time, 38 seconds. The Type 052D's HHQ, 16 medium-range missiles engage at 6,000 meters, destroying 2 Tomahawks. The Type 1130 CIWS engages the remaining 2 at close range. 1 Tomahawk explodes at 1,400 meters. The final Tomahawk penetrates. Impact, 12:11 and 47 seconds AM, starboard side amidships, 1 meter above the waterline. The explosion penetrates the hull and detonates in the ship's main engineering space. Casualties, 7 killed for wounded. The Type 052D loses propulsion. Speed, 0. The destroyer begins drifting with the current, dead in the water. Fire spread through the engineering spaces. The crew abandons the aft sections and fights to contain the damage forward. 12:20 AM. The engagement concludes. Total duration, 11 minutes. Missiles launched, 47. Missiles intercepted, 33. Missiles that struck targets, 4. Total tonnage damaged, 29,000 tons. Total casualties, 52 killed, 40 wounded. The Zumwalt withdraws southeast toward the Ronald Reagan Carrier Group, 120 nautical miles distant. The Nanchang withdraws northwest toward Hainan Island Naval Base, 340 nautical miles distant. The Type 052D remains adrift, unable to maneuver, with fires still burning in the engineering spaces. Planned rescue vessels depart Fiery Cross Reef immediately. Estimated arrival time, 2.3 hours. U.S. Pacific Fleet orders the Ronald Reagan Carrier Strike Group to close the distance to the Zumwalt while maintaining position outside the 9-dash line. Both navies transition to high alert status. The engagement is over. The crisis is beginning. September 4th, 6:15 a.m. Planned rescue vessels reach the Type 052D. The fires are under control, but the engineering spaces are destroyed. Casualties, stabilized at 7 dead or wounded. The destroyer cannot operate under its own power. Salvage assessment. The vessel requires tow to dry dock facilities for repairs estimated at $180 million and 14 months. The Nanchang reaches Yulin Naval Base on Hainan Island at 8:40 a.m. Damage assessment. Forward VLS module destroyed, 31 crew killed, 17 wounded. Repair estimate, $240 million and 11 months. The Zumwalt reaches the Ronald Reagan Carrier Group at 7:20 a.m. Damage assessment, 2 missile impacts, 14 crew killed, 19 wounded. Repair estimate, $420 million in 16 months. Total repair costs, $840 million. Total casualties, 52 killed, 40 wounded. Total strategic impact, immeasurable. The engagement produces immediate doctrinal reassessment across both navies. The U.S. Navy confronts the reality that stealth shaping and reduced radar cross-section provide marginal advantages when operating within visual range of capable adversaries. The Zumwalt's technological sophistication does not compensate for the absence of dedicated anti-ship missiles or the vulnerability inherent in close-range operations. The plan confronts the reality that even successful strikes against American warships do not guarantee tactical victory when defensive systems perform as designed. The 70% intercept rate achieved by the Zumwalt's missile defense demonstrates that saturation attacks require larger salvos than current doctrine anticipates. Both sides learn that modern naval combat at close range generates escalation dynamics that compress decision-making timelines below the threshold where political control can be exercised effectively. The broader strategic implications extend beyond tactics. The engagement demonstrates that freedom of navigation operations conducted within close proximity to capable adversaries create conditions where accidents can escalate to armed conflict in seconds. The international legal framework governing naval operations in contested waters provides insufficient guidance for scenarios where radar locks and defensive preparations can be interpreted as hostile acts. The engagement also demonstrates that modern missile defense systems, while effective, cannot guarantee perfect protection against determined attacks. Every navy operating in contested waters must now calculate the probability that peacetime operations can transition to combat without warning or authorization. The financial analysis reveals asymmetries that favor offensive operations. The Zumwalt expended 28 defensive missiles valued at approximately $92 million to defeat 8 Chinese anti-ship missiles valued at approximately $20 million. The defensive cost ratio, 4.6 to 1. The plan expended 24 defensive missiles valued at approximately $72 million to defeat 6 Tomahawk missiles valued at approximately $11 million. The defensive cost ratio, 6.5 to 1. In sustained exchanges, the side that fires first and forces defensive expenditure maintains economic advantage even if attacks fail. The mathematics are unforgiving. Defense costs more than offense, and the inventory depth determines who can sustain engagement longer. The most significant consequence may be the erosion of assumptions that have governed naval operations in the South China Sea for decades. Before September 3rd, both navies operated on the premise that close proximity encounters could be managed through communication protocols and professional seamanship. After September 3rd, both navies understand that capability creates vulnerability. Ships equipped with weapon systems capable of engaging targets in seconds cannot operate in close proximity without accepting the risk that defensive preparations will be interpreted as hostile intent. The engagement demonstrates that the technology designed to provide security has instead created conditions where miscalculation and rapid escalation become more probable. This engagement succeeded in demonstrating capabilities on both sides, but it failed to achieve strategic objectives for either navy. The United States completed its freedom of navigation operation, but lost credibility in its assertion that such operations can be conducted without risk of armed conflict. China defended its claimed territorial waters, but revealed vulnerabilities in its defensive systems and suffered greater casualties than the opposing force. Both sides damaged expensive warships that will require months of repairs. Both sides lost experienced personnel who cannot be replaced quickly. Both sides now face the reality that future encounters in contested waters carry higher risk of escalation than previous doctrine acknowledged. What the engagement demonstrated most clearly is that modern naval warfare at close range provides no winners, only different degrees of loss. The Zumwalt survived but will spend more than a year in repair. The Nanchang survived but lost nearly one-third of its crew. The Type 052D survived but cannot move under its own power. The tactical outcome, inconclusive. The strategic outcome. Both navies must now operate with the knowledge that proximity creates vulnerability that technology cannot eliminate. The lesson is that deterrence requires not just capability but also distance. and that close-range naval operations in contested waters create conditions where escalation can occur faster than political control can be exercised. Now I want to hear from you. Do you think freedom of navigation operations should continue in contested waters after this engagement, or do the risks now outweigh the strategic benefits? How would you redesign naval doctrine to prevent similar escalations while maintaining presence in critical regions? Share your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow for more in-depth analysis of modern naval warfare.